Welcome to Who Made This Mess? Raising Children and Reparenting Ourselves. Here we discuss the joys and challenges of parenting while trying to develop our own self-awareness and self-compassion. Raising children can be messy and so hard, but we believe that as we learn to embrace our own messiness and imperfection, we can learn to show up for our kids and raise a gentler generation.
Hi, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Angie,
I'm Shauna.
and we're so glad to have you with us today. We have a great topic to discuss that we both really enjoy just talking about with each other, and we just really wanted to share that with our listeners today. It's
Yes.
teaching through play.
Yes, and I think that parents see play, and some parents are like, "Oh, I love to play with my kid. It's fun." And some parents are like, "Oh my gosh, I cannot take another second of playing with my child. I don't like it." And I think it is really important to learn about how to make play fun, but also meaningful in terms of um, educational, right? So, like making the play something that you see as beneficial for your child. And so
Mhm.
I hope today we're going to talk about some ways to shift your perspective on play so it is something that you see as valuable and
Right.
meaningful. Or
Mhm.
even if you already think it's valuable and meaningful, how do you kind of amp your game up
Yeah.
on really making learning fun for kids?
Right. And it's something that out there there's so many ideas of like how to play, new ways to play, and you do just have to find what works for you and for your child, your household. Take the pressure off, but allowing the play to be helpful. That's my goal. I wanted play to be helpful to my kids to learn through it. But how do we do that? So
Yeah. And I think it can be really intimidating. Like, I don't know if you see on social media the parents who are doing these like big activities with their kids and like intricate things with lots and lots of steps. And I think a lot of times it can be so simple. We don't have to make it complicated when it comes to play. You don't have to put a bunch of pressure on yourself to have big craft projects or things that are going to take a lot of planning. You can just play, and that can be an opportunity for learning.
yeah, I think that it's hard to take there's moments where it can be hard to take the time because you do think that all that planning is so necessary. You
Hmm.
have to like set the stage almost for like, okay, we're gonna have this great playtime, and then I know for myself, I'm setting myself up for it to not go well, and then me
Yeah.
to feel defeated by the end because it was like too much planning, too much like expectations I was putting out there, and that's the day that they might have a bad day.
Yeah. This happens to me all the time. Like when my child was younger, when Edo was little, I tried to do this Valentine's Day activity with her where like cut up little pieces of paper and tissue paper. And then I like made this heart out of contact paper and I was going to have her put them all over it. And like she just took the paper and started eating it.
Oh,
I was like, okay, maybe this is not that fun for her and for me, because now I'm just frustrated, and I guess I'll put all the paper on the heart and put it up on the window like I had
yeah.
planned, right? And then it's not really about her,
Mhm.
um,
Right.
and she's not having fun, and I'm not having fun.
Yeah.
So, one of the big important things when it comes to playing with your kids is letting them be in control and being child directed.
Mhm.
That's so hard. And I think it contradicts a lot of the ways that we think about teaching, right?
It
Teaching kids through
does.
play.
Yeah.
And
I agree with that. And that's definitely a difficult one for me in all areas, not just through play, just kind of letting go of that. It has to be done this way. And I know my kids have caught on to that too, because there's times when they're like, do you just want to do it? It'll be better. It'll be right that
mhm,
way. And so it's something I've had to kind of like rewind and reverse things that I've kind of taught them, not realizing. When I try to control it, it comes out like, okay, if we're playing with Legos, we need to build this way. Everything has to be symmetrical because that's how my
mhm.
mind thinks. We have to find a matching color, or
Yeah.
we're playing with. with dolls or something, we have to be doing it in like a certain gender role or
Mhm.
following the directions of, well, if this is the kitchen, we're not doing, if we're playing with a dollhouse and this is the kitchen, this is where the cooking
Mhm.
happens.
Mhm. Yeah, what do you I mean, do you have any observations about what happens to the play when you do that?
They don't want to play with me anymore.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little bit heartbreaking. Um, yeah, and I'm really just telling them they're doing it wrong.
Mhm.
I may not be coming out and saying it with those words, but my actions show that they're not playing right. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really sad. To think back in the moments that I've done that. I do try a little bit. I am more intentional about trying not to play that way. Um, and they are older now,
Mhm.
9 and 10 years old, and so our play does look a little different now.
Mhm.
But like one thing that I definitely had to learn was I was expecting from them things that I hadn't taught them. So, for
Mhm.
example, if we're playing Tea Party, I had to learn to actually put some water in the cups and let them learn how to carry the tray without making a mess. I wouldn't put
Yes.
water in the teacups because it was like they're going to make a mess, but that's the time to teach them, hey, why don't you hold the cups steady instead of when they have a glass of milk and they spill it.
Mhm.
I'm like, why didn't you hold it steady? I didn't teach them how to hold a cup steady yet, you know? And so
Yeah.
taking the time to allow for mess is a big thing
Yes.
for me. The same with Play-Doh. Play-Doh, oh my
Oh
goodness.
gosh.
They have learned for me that they need to have Play-Doh out at a certain time, and we play with Play-Doh at the table. It is kind
Yeah.
of a rule in our house that we're not just going to have Play-Doh and be anywhere in the house with Play-Doh.
Mhm.
So they've adjusted to that, but I did have to kind of let them make a mess, let them mix
Mhm.
the Play-Doh.
It's so hard. What
So,
you're talking about is so typical, so
mhm,
common, and I think that's something that almost every family has experienced.
mhm,
Um, to feel that like, oh, I just want things to be a certain way. I want them to be the right way.
yeah,
And really, when we think about it, like it's okay. It's okay for your child to put the bathroom furniture in the kitchen area of the playhouse. And, it doesn't mean that when they're 25 years old, they're going to be going potty in the middle of the kitchen, right? Like they're going to, they're going to learn over time, right? Like this is just practice. This is time for them to explore.
mhm,
And that's really important for their self-esteem,
mhm,
and for their learning. And I think
mhm,
it's typical to see kids get kind of frustrated, withdraw, shut down when they feel like their parent is in control of the play.
mhm.
And it's not as fun for them anymore because they're either trying to please you or they're just
I
like,
know.
I don't think I can please you. And so I'm just going to shut down and pull away. But I
Mhm,
loved what you were talking about in setting up the structure, the scenario
mhm,
to promote success with some
mhm,
of those things that you're trying to teach or helping them to learn, right? And so it might mean, there might be life skills you hope for your kids to learn about balance, right? And some of
mhm,
those physical skills, manipulative skills. And if you set them up with water and a little teacup that
mhm,
they can practice with, and if they spill it on themselves or on the floor, it's easy cleanup. It's no big deal. No
mhm.
stress for you, no stress for them.
Yeah,
Right? Like
right.
that's
No.
yeah, you're setting them up for success. And that's valuable because they're going to feel a lot better about themselves as they gain those skills, and you're going to be um, feeling a lot better about them when
Mhm.
you're not, upset or yelling because they spilled things all over the place, right? So it's
Out
just
the
it's
mess all the time.
it's good all around. Yeah.
Yeah.
We also have, I guess it's a rule. We don't really talk about it as a rule, but we only play with Play-Doh at the kitchen table.
Mhm.
Um, And if you follow me on Instagram and followed my days of play, you'll know my daughter is obsessed with Play-Doh.
Yeah.
She loves it. She's 2, right? So that's
Mhm.
like the best thing. She would play Play-Doh every single day.
Mhm.
Um, and I am okay with her mixing the colors because I've done all of this work,
Yeah.
but it is still hard on me sometimes. And the other day we were cleaning up after playing some Play-Doh, and I've kind of have to tell my husband, who, you know, came from the background of you do not mix your Play-Doh colors, right? And so I was like, no, it's okay. She's allowed to mix her colors, right? That's fine. Um,
Mhm.
and I'm trying to practice letting her be in control.
Mhm.
And then when it's time to clean up, I will like go and pinch out some of the colors that she she mixed in there and
Yeah.
try to keep them. And for me, I think in my mind it's like, this is so it's nicer next time she wants to play with it. But like, really, it doesn't matter. It
Right.
does not matter if the color is the same color as the lid,
Mhm.
right? Like, it's okay.
I
It's
know.
okay.
I
Like,
know.
they're going to figure it out. And it's better for her to have that time where she can be in control and she can be mixing and exploring and see what happens when you put,
Mhm.
yellow and red together and that makes
Mhm.
orange, right? Like, she's learning through that exploring and me allowing her to be in control. She's learning cause and effect.
Right.
And that's really important. But I think no matter how much we shift our perspective and try to learn these skills, there will still be moments where we want to take over control,
Yeah.
where, those patterns and those habits don't break. Like, even playing Play Doh with her, sometimes I'll get an idea and I'll like want to make something with the Play Doh. And
Mhm.
it's really hard for me to stop
Yeah.
and remember, oh, this is her play. Like,
Yeah.
I'm here to support her to do what she wants to do with the Play-Doh.
Mhm.
And I'm not here to like make the little cute little house that I'm thinking, oh, a little fairy house would be really fun,
Right.
right? Like, no, that's going to disrupt her play and her process and her learning if
Mhm.
I take over.
Right. And like you mentioned Legos, I like to play with Legos with the kids, and sometimes they don't want me to do that with them. But it is like, if I'm building a house, am I building a house that and not helping them build a house because I'm so focused on the house I'm trying to build, and almost like a competitive nature can come in, like, oh, I
Yeah.
want to build and this is the way you do it, you know.
And your kids are a little older. Um, and so this might look different. So, my daughter being 2, we think about kids that are preschool age.
Hmm.
They don't have a plan, so much as they don't have a specific way they want to play with the toys.
Hmm.
They're
Hmm.
discovering that as they play, they might change
Right.
their mind, and that's okay. And we need to kind of go with the flow with them and continue to let them be
Hmm.
child directed and control. But I think as kids get older, they might start to want to follow rules a little bit
Hmm.
more. And so by like 10 or 11, you might see them be interested in building specific things with the Legos, right?
Hmm.
Doing one of the kits with the
Hmm.
Legos.
Yeah.
And so it shifts over time what that
Hmm.
looks like. Are they into the kits, or do they just like to kind of
Oh
build
yeah.
whatever they want?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
They're into the kits. Now they're a little bit different as far as Jasmine. She likes the kit, and then when she's done with the kit, she'll be done with it.
Hmm.
Ethan, he'll build it. He'll build the kit, and then if he does take something apart or something usually will break somehow, then
Yeah.
he'll just build on his own very well,
Hmm.
and come up with his own ideas. She'll do that too, but it's always still very, very much some kind of like known structure. So she
Hmm.
is building a house or a car or something like that. He'll build something that's just kind of like anything. I don't know. There's not
Fantasy.
big names to it, but it's still, you can tell it is something. It has a purpose. It's some kind of creatures. Not
Yeah.
necessarily. It's not something that like you've seen before. So his
Hmm.
mind works very much like that.
Hmm.
And
He's
he
very
can.
imaginative and creative.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he can play with anything. He can play with a stick for
Yeah.
hours. Both of them. One thing that I really love, at the age that they are, a lot of parents are dealing with the fact that kids just want to be in front of a screen, whether it be the
Mhm.
TV, video games, a smaller tablet device. And my kids still love to go outside and play. And then they also can just play with, we would get like a big cardboard box from something ordered. And they played with these cardboard boxes for hours, for days, and
Mm.
did not get bored with it. And so it just brings back that, like, the wonderfulness of childhood to me. I just love
Mhm.
watching them play in that way and use their imagination. So
Mhm.
I'm a big supporter of those things. Anytime we have like a big box, I'm like, look what we have. We have a big box to play with. And they're
Yes.
super excited about it. And it's so much better than the toys with all the directions and the kits and pieces from the
Yeah,
store.
kids need that space to express themselves, right? And to
Mhm.
explore and to be creative. And I love that. I love that you're willing to embrace some mess in your house and boxes that are taking up part of your living room or wherever it
Mhm.
is, right? To be able to do that.
So one thing that I thought was really interesting, and I wondered if there would be any research behind this, is my kids started from scratch basically with those cardboard boxes. They're brown and plain, and they probably just had a logo from the store on it, and so there wasn't
Yeah.
anything to start with, and they were able to create really awesome things from these boxes, and their imaginations just went. And so I
Mhm.
wondered, it did make me think back to a time when I was at the preschool, and the staff from our preschool visited the Carnegie Mellon Children's School here in Pittsburgh. And one thing that I noticed, but really wasn't expecting at all, was when I go into a daycare or a preschool, there's color everywhere in the room, from the
Mhm.
ceiling through the floor. Like, and there's sounds and just everything is just very bright and colorful. At this
Yes.
children's school, everything was beige or different tones of brown and wooden, and there wasn't rainbows everywhere or just a variety of bright colors everywhere. And I found that so interesting. And I'm sure there was purpose and reason behind it that I wouldn't know, but I wondered if like what the purpose of that was, and does it work? I see it work at home with cardboard boxes, but I think it was really an interesting observation.
That is a really great example of how toys being simple helps kids to be more creative,
Mhm.
right? And so, there are philosophies or schools of thought about early learning and child development.
Mhm.
So, bright colors, right? There's a lot of research that I'm not familiar with on color
Mhm.
theory. I would love to kind of explore that a little bit more. That's really interesting. But bright
Mhm.
colors grab attention,
Yes.
right? And if we want things that are entertaining kids, they're
Mhm.
going to be bright colors, bright lights, noises, buttons. So it grabs their attention,
Mhm.
but it can also overstimulate them.
Okay. Yeah.
And right. And so it's like, yeah, this is exciting, but
Mhm.
it can sometimes be too much.
Right.
When we have things that are neutral, that can be more calming and soothing. But also, things that are simple and basic allow kids to be creative and explore and use their imagination.
Mhm.
And so, things like Montessori, they use a lot of wooden toys, a lot of task and work related items. So things that are like miniature versions of adult things that kids can learn
Mhm.
and explore.
Okay.
Waldorf is very nature focused. And so, really natural materials and fibers, and getting outside and
Mhm.
exploring nature in that way and being creative with the things that you find. And so, Yeah, there are some different ways of going about that, but I think
Hmm.
it's interesting to think about the goals that we have with the
Right.
toys, right?
Yeah.
So is the goal to just distract the kid, keep them entertained over here,
Yeah.
or is it for them to learn and explore, try
Mhm.
something new, put their own purpose to a neutral looking object?
Yeah, and I guess I would think that it's probably having a balance of all of them is probably the healthiest. I would think. When you said overstimulated, that really made me think back to when we lived at another place. Our playroom was just packed with toys. And so, one
Yeah.
thing that I found better to do was have like a smaller tote bin that we would have toys in, and that would be what would be downstairs in the living room. And then I would like kind of circulate them and switch what was in the bin to bring them downstairs.
Yeah.
And they played with things well that way rather than having the entire playroom filled with toys. It was like there was too much. They didn't know how to play with it, or
Yeah.
and so
And
they
there
took
is a
movie
lot of
instead.
research. Yeah, there is research on that that shows that kids will play longer
Hmm.
with fewer toys than
Yes.
they do when they have a lot of toys. So, I used to do a type of play therapy, and we would only bring out 3 to 5 sets of toys
Hmm.
at a time, even though back in my office, I had a closet full of toys, right? Kids are going to do better. They're going to be less overwhelmed. They're going to get more engaged in the play when they actually have fewer choices.
Right, right. Yeah, I think about, if you're even just like in a store as an adult, it's like
Hmm.
you're looking at one thing, but then you see something over there, and then you go over there,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just how that does work. It is a change as I go through my kids' room each year to get rid of things. Now my daughter, she's about to be 11, and she's playing with toys less and less, and
Hmm.
it's a little bit hard for me to see
Yeah.
her play less and less with toys. But I still would love to have her learn through play and not
Hmm.
just resort to electronic things and stuff like that. And so, one thing in our family that we have done for years now is game nights. And
Hmm.
of course, there are weeks that we don't do it and we fall off our schedule of it because of all the activities, but we have been really intentional with it. And it started because our kids were really struggling with their emotions when things wouldn't go their
Hmm.
way, or if they were at school and dealing with anything. If something just awful happened, their emotions just went to 100 very
Yeah.
quickly. And it was like, wow, we need to work on dealing with emotions, whether really good emotions, if you did really well in something, not being over prideful and
Hmm.
pushing it in other people's faces, or if something did not go your way, dealing with it in a healthy manner. And it was like, we need to teach that here because out there, it's showing that you haven't learned this well. And so we started doing game nights because we wanted to work through. Somebody has to lose, whether you're
Yeah.
on a team or individual players. We had to work through another player sending you back 5 spaces, and you were almost to the
Hmm.
end to win. Um, getting dealt a bad hand in Uno, just a lot of things. And so I really like what games do. It's not with the TV on. There's a lot of talking that happens throughout a game of Uno, or
Hmm.
one of the ones my kids really like is Guess Who right now. And so that really has helped them learn how to regulate their emotions. We still need work. There's still some things sometimes that come up that it's like I'm pausing. I'm not
Hmm.
reacting to it. I have like learned not to just like react back, but I'm noticing like, wow, they're not handling this very well. Like, where are they learning to handle this in this way? And it might be from outside sources. Let's be honest, it's from me too. They're learning from me how to handle things, and I can see it as a reflection, sometimes. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, games is something that as they play, especially my daughter, she plays with toys. Less games is a way to work through, like, being intentional about teaching through it too. So.
Yeah, and I think, games, kids are going to learn a lot of skills, like you mentioned, the emotion regulation skills, the social skills. They have opportunities to practice when you do family game night, but
Mhm.
in a safe environment where you can be there to scaffold and support
Mhm.
those interactions. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, you are setting the example. You are modeling, oh, I got the card that,
Mhm.
makes me have to pick up four. I can't remember the rules of darn it.
Yeah, draw
But
4.
right. And so, how do you respond? Are you modeling the, oh, wow, that's disappointing. Okay, let me get my four cards, right? And so
Mhm.
you're gonna show them those emotions are okay, right?
Mhm.
It's okay to feel disappointed. It's okay to
Mhm.
feel happy when you win,
Right.
right?
Right.
But how do we kind of keep that in the window of tolerance, right? How do we kind of keep that in a comfortable place? And
Exactly.
how do we not make other people feel really bad by the way that
Yeah.
we're responding to those things, right? So if we're
Mhm.
like, haha, you lost,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Mhm.
you know, that's going to make your sister feel bad
Mhm.
if you do that, right? And so kind of drawing attention, describing those scenarios, but
Right.
modeling and scaffolding. What I mean by scaffolding is like helping them to be successful. So that might mean giving them the words, right? And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
if your daughter looks really sad and frustrated and is
Mhm.
maybe withdrawing because she's losing, so you might say to her something like labeling her emotions for her,
Mhm.
like you seem really sad right now. It can
Mhm.
be really frustrating
Mhm.
to be losing at a game.
Yeah, and in games, it does parallel how life is.
Hmm.
Sometimes you're doing the best you can, and you still
Hmm.
don't come out on top. Like,
Yeah.
and it's tough because um, there's moments where things are not in your control, and it does still become a disappointing moment. And so, yeah,
Hmm.
just working through that, like you said, like, let's work on this at home because this can't continue out there. So I really like it. Something that I have to work on. I'm very, very competitive. Maurice does not like to play games with me at all. If we play any type of games like with family, he's like, I don't want to play with her. I'm not on her team. Like, so it's something that I have to work on too because I'm pretty competitive, and
Me
when
too.
I win, I want the joy, but when I lose, it's tough for me. So
Yeah.
yeah, as a family as a whole, we all have to work on it. So.
And I think that's actually really great to say out loud and to model for your kids, like, oh, mommy is working on this,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, I'm gonna work on trying to be a good sport today. If I win or if I lose, right? I'm gonna try to be really kind and gracious with that, right? And showing
Mhm.
them what that looks like and letting them know it's okay to struggle with that sometimes, that it doesn't necessarily come super easily.
Right.
Um, yeah. And so kids your kids are at a great age for games and things that
Mhm.
have rules, but
Mhm.
a lot of kids, younger kids, are not going to be able to do that yet. um,
Mhm.
Really, it's around age 8 where they be able to follow rules of a game and not get frustrated. And so,
Which is good
kind of
to
saving that
know.
for when they're older, I think, could be beneficial.
That is good to know because I think that my expectation would have been a much younger age, and to know
Hmm.
that isn't, a good starting ground. That
Yeah.
their expectation, that is good. When they're younger, yeah, stick to learning fine motor skills, stuff that
Hmm.
teaches those kind of things. friends, you know.
And they're learning so many social skills too. They're learning waiting, taking turns,
Oh, yes.
sharing, trading, right? They're still learning lots of skills that will help them to be successful when they get to the age where they can follow rules. You can still play with game pieces, right?
Mhm,
So we have like a Disney matching game,
mhm,
a memory game, right?
mhm,
And so right now I'm using that with her just to kind of practice image recognition and matching. She doesn't
mhm.
have to do it. I try to just kind of let her be in control, but if we find pairs, I label, oh, that's a match. They have the same picture on them,
Right.
right? And so we're using some of this descriptive commenting where our language really instills in them um, learning, right? So I'm labeling for that for my daughter, maybe colors, right? This
Mhm,
card is green and that card is green.
mhm.
She's learning her colors. She's learning to look for things being the same because I'm
Mhm.
labeling them as the same. You can
Yes.
label all kinds of things for kids. Younger kids, it's going to be things like numbers,
Mhm,
colors,
mhm.
direction that they're going to be learning just through labeling, right?
Yeah.
Not through quizzing them. Oh, how many cards do you have there? Right?
Exactly.
Because you
Yep.
laughed. They're going to get frustrated. They're not going to want to play with you.
Help them
But
listen.
you'll notice even me as someone who has been trying to teach these skills to parents for over 10 years. I still ask her questions and I like, oh, it's like a knife to my heart when I do it. But I'm still ask questions because it's so ingrained in us. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to switch to that descriptions instead because that's going to
Mhm.
help her to learn without that pressure. It's going to be way more fun for her
Mhm.
when I'm describing it.
Yeah.
With older kids, you're going to be describing things like emotions, right?
Mhm.
Even with younger kids. But as your
Mhm.
kids get older, you're going to be describing different things. Aren't going to want you to be like, oh, you're driving the red car. Ethan's going to be like, what are you talking about, mom? Like, you're being really weird right
Yeah.
now. And so, that's going to change over time.
Mhm. Yeah, and right now it maybe not be in that moment. Sometimes it has to just be later,
Yeah.
coming back, circling back around to it. Sometimes in the moment where she's upset, it's not the time to do anything
True.
but offer a hug, or just sometimes it's me pushing at the wrong time. She might have had a hard long day, and I'm pushing about well, make sure you do this and this and this for tomorrow. Well, timing and stuff like that. So just knowing when the right time is. Same with like teaching through play. There's days it's
Hmm.
going to be a great moment to work on really being intentional, and then there's days where you just need to not be overthinking it and just let it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely being in tune with yourself and with your
Hmm.
child and
Hmm.
what the needs are in that moment.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think just to kind of summarize some of the things we've been talking about when we're helping kids to learn through play, and there's so many more things that we can do, but just to focus on giving up that control,
Hmm.
letting them be in charge, and for us to really take that practice of taking the back seat and being the follower
Yes.
instead of the leader.
Yes.
We talked about kind of creating that structure in the home and around what kind of toys you have available that will
Hmm.
support learning and support an environment where they can be in control, right?
Hmm.
So keeping things simple, having a space that it's okay to make a mess.
Yes.
Right, like those are the things that are going to help them, keeping the toys that are like developmentally appropriate for them,
Hmm.
right? And not expecting too much.
Hmm.
Um, and then using some of that language and descriptive commenting, coaching them through those moments, describing the things that they're playing with, kind of those academic concepts, as well as maybe emotional and social concepts as well.
Hmm.
And I think, as our listeners are trying to support their kiddos, it doesn't take all day, every day to
Hmm.
practice these skills. You can focus in on just 5 minutes, right? If that's
Hmm.
what you have, all in for 5 minutes is going to be so meaningful and have an
Mhm.
impact on your child when you're really, focused in on that time, phone down, TV off. This is playtime and my child is in control.
Yes. Oh, very, very good. Yes. I love this discussion today. If you're listening and have any comments or input, we'd love to hear from you. If you have any
Mhm.
questions or even a
Yeah.
topic you would like Shauna and I to talk about, we'd love to hear from you. We can be found on Instagram at Who Made This Mess Podcast, and you can contact us also by Gmail at Who Made This Mess Pod at gmail.com.
You can find me at the Nerdy Nurture on Instagram.
And I am on Instagram at Robinson right now.
And we are so glad that you joined us. Please reach out. We'd love to answer your questions and hear your input. So have a great week.
Have a good week.
Thanks.